Lesson 27. We continue reading from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Chapter 1, Sutra 50. Last week, we were introduced by Svatmarama to a very special category of asanas, of which there are 84, and he proposes 4 of those, the quintessential ones according to Svatmarama. We did 2 of those last week, Padmasana and Shimasana, Shidasana. Today we have the other 2, and after that some practical instructions. So let's have a look at Sutra 50 for the 3rd asana in accordance with or proposed by Shiva. Then the Simhasana is described. Place the ankles below the perineum on either side of the perineum. The right ankle on the left side of it and the left ankle on the right. Place the palms upon the knees. Spread out the fingers and with an open mouth look at the tip of the nose with concentrated mind. So, if you do this literally, which most people do, because they take the text literally, it's big fun if you teach yoga to children. I have done a yoga class with children, and the one thing that you must not do is be serious when teaching yoga to children. Just let them goof around, let them play, and that's all they need. No meditation, that doesn't work with children. So play with their imagination. And here, if you do this literally, you sit there, sticking out your tongue, crossing your eyes, and they love that. You have so much fun. But that is not, of course, what this exercise is about. The next sutra tells us, this is Simasana, held in great esteem by the highest yogins. This most excellent asana facilitates the 3 bandhas. So this is an exercise that helps you to become aware of the subtle engagement of the throat lock, the root lock, and the Uddiyana Bandha, the belly, the abdomen. That is because when you stand on your knees like that, making a hollow back, I think you cross the feet, you cross the ankles. So you cross the ankles, you're balancing on your knees, and you make a hollow back. And what you do is you activate, you can feel the pelvic bottom muscles, which are engaged with Mula Bandha. Because you're actively making a hollow back, sticking out your tailbone, your belly is tucked in, which makes you aware of Uddiyana Bandha. And of course your throat is engaged since you are keeping your head up. So this is a concentration exercise, which we know from Sutra 51. With open mouth, which is not literally open mouth, so you do not stick out your tongue. That is for ignorant yoga practitioners. Open mouth here refers to the cosmic mouth or Ajna Chakra, through which energy flows in and out of our being. Looking at the tip of the nose with concentrated mind indicates that this is a concentration meditation exercise designed to develop awareness in the root lock, the pelvic bottom muscles, Uddiyana Bandha, basically the 3 chakras that become one big vital ball of energy in the belly, Uddiyana Bandha, and Jalandhara Bandha, the throat lock. Simha is a lion, so it's the lion pose. (53). Next, the Bhadrasana is described. Place the ankles below the perineum on the sides of the perineum, the left ankle to the left and the right ankle on the right, sole to sole. Then firmly hold the feet with the hands, Sutra 54, which are on their sides, and remain motionless. This is Bhadrasana, which destroys all diseases. The yogins who have become siddhas call this Gorakshasana. Goraksha is one of the yogis at the very beginning of the lineage, starting with Shiva teaching yoga on the beach. It's a very classical stretch that many people do as a warming up before a workout. But we don't do this, of course. We sit still and we actively straighten the back, which you do by tilting the pelvis. So this is a Kundalini exercise if you sit still and concentrate. Sutra 55, thus the best of yogins, being free of fatigue in practicing asanas and bandhas, should practice purification of the nadis, mudras, etc., and control of energy. When you read this kind of text, it becomes clear that yoga is not about asana. Asana is only a tool. It is about improving our energy household, which, when polluted, leads to all kinds of physical disease, but also mental disturbances. And the biggest goal in all of this is the awakening of consciousness. So truly awakening, the awakening that is mentioned in all spiritual and religious scriptures. It's in fact the opening up of the crown chakra for obvious reasons mentioned many times before. The manifestation of the what we call royal characteristics: wisdom, intuition, deep insight, unconditional love, all these wonderful characteristics that manifest, which is simply not possible without improving the energy circulation and also cleaning up the obstacles that everybody has within the energy channels. So Satmarama in Sutra 55 establishes that the practice of asana is only a step towards purification of the nadis, purification of the energy channels, towards the even more powerful energy control exercises that are discussed in chapter 3, which is discussed in the advanced course, and control of energy, which is the 3 steps of meditation that start with concentration, meditation, and contemplation. So far, no questions? Sutra 56. Asanas, the varieties of kumbhaka, the positions called mudra, then concentration upon the nada, comprise the sequence of practice in Hatha Yoga. So ideally, if you have your own practice and you do the whole package, you start with asana, you then do a pranayama exercise, and then you do a meditation, contemplation, in that order, because asana prepares for Pranayama, and pranayama prepares for the 3 steps of meditation. 57. The brahmacharin, one devoted to Brahma who leads a chaste life, who, following a moderate diet, is intent on yoga, renouncing the fruit of your actions, becomes a siddha after a year. There need be no doubt about this. A year. If you practice yoga correctly, you can immediately feel that there are changes taking place. A siddha is a person who possesses siddhis, supernatural, paranormal abilities that are actually quite normal and natural, provided that there is sufficient vital energy present. So while many people are impressed by the mystery surrounding yoga and mystifying the great yogis of the past, you become a yogi quite soon if you practice yoga correctly in the way that it is presented in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and on a fairly regular basis. I fell in love with yoga after only 1 session because of how it made me feel. I started practicing every day and it completely changed my life. Immediately, not 1 year later, not 4 years later. Immediately it gave me a new perspective, a new hope, and a new direction. Away from the darkness and destruction and towards the light and hope. That is also the reason why I stick to this approach. It has a direct impact on people. I activated the new the Magic Pond Instagram account that I actually created 2 years or 3 years ago. Didn't know how to open it. And a student from 13, 14 years ago commented on the post with the little guy being so flexible. He said, Ron, I don't know his exact words, but in the line of Ron, your classes have had such a profound impact in our lives. He came to the course with his wife, and they're living in the States now. And those kind of reactions I've had throughout the years on a fairly regular basis. Often also at the end of a course, people hand me some notes, some cards with thank you notes that really indicate that what we do works. It does. It didn't only change my life, it changes students' lives as well. And that is, for me, that is all that makes it worthwhile. Very powerful system indeed, if only it is approached in the correct way. A brahmacharin, that is you and me. It sounds also very what do you call it? Intimidating maybe. A brahmacharin, you have visions of someone dressed in a yogi dress with a turban on their head. No, a brahmacharin, Brahma means God, and a brahmacharin is somebody who follows the spiritual path. Anybody who follows the spiritual path with a reasonable sincerity is in fact a brahmacharin. It's those who are on the spiritual path, it's you and me. 58. Moderate diet is defined to mean agreeable and sweet food, leaving 1/4 of the stomach free, eaten as an offering to please Shiva. So this is what people do when they read a sutra like this. They make an altar in their house and they put fruits and drinks and all kinds of foods in front of the altar as an offering to please Shiva, which is God. But what does this mean in practical terms? It means that when you eat, you shouldn't eat too much because it costs energy. And everybody knows from experience, when you have a big meal, it makes you tired. So it absorbs all that valuable energy that you are, since you started practicing yoga, that you are actually dedicating to your pursuit of yoga, to the pursuit of opening up the crown chakra, really. Because that is what Shiva symbolically means. Shiva is not God somewhere up there behind the clouds. It's your 7th chakra. It's the crown chakra where your royal or divine characteristics are located. That is, in practice, what this really means. And of course, it's always nice if you want to have a small altar in your house. I don't, but some people do. Sure, why not? As long as you know that this sutta does not mean that every practitioner must sacrifice food to some kind of divine being, because this is about us, how we deal with food. So leaving 1/4, 1/4 of the stomach free just means eat, but do not eat until you're really stuffed, because then you're going to have to pay for it with your energy crashing down away from where you want it to be in the crown chakra. 59. The following things are said to be not salutary for yogins. Things that are bitter, sour, pungent, salty, heating, green vegetables other than those ordained, sour gruel, sesame or mustard, oil, sesamum, mustard, alcohol, fish, flesh including that of the goat, curds, buttermilk, horse gram, the fruit of the jujube, oil cakes, asafoetida, and garlic. What is described here are all foods that one way or another interfere with your levels of energy. They are either very tamas, which leads to lethargy, energy dropping, or they're very rajas, which leads to restlessness. Oh wait, one thing. What is remarkable is that he mentions green vegetables. We know that salad is healthy, but why does he mention green vegetables here? The reason for that is that green vegetables, leafy vegetables, do not contain the whole spectrum of nutrients to sustain life. For that you have to look at the function of leaves. What do leaves do? They transform sunlight into energy, which it then feeds to the really nutritious part, the root or the beet or the nut or the seed, which will be mentioned in a sutra later, you will see. So green vegetables are very healthy, but they should be only a part of the meal. The important part of a meal is what we call staple foods. So we will come to that. Diets of the following nature should be avoided as unhealthy. Foods that having been once cooked has grown cold and is heated again. Food which is dry, devoid of fat, or has an excess of salt or sourness, or food that is bad or has too much of vegetables mixed with it. Vegetables, again, referring to green vegetables, leafy vegetables. Now, this seems to imply that when you cook a meal and you had your meal, that you should throw away the leftover. I never throw away food unless it is bad. Why? This was written in a time that there were no refrigerators. So when you cook food and you just leave it out, science has shown that the germs multiply very fast in the cooling down process. So it is correct that you should not keep food and then reheat it again if you do not have a refrigerator. But everybody these days has a refrigerator. And so something else comes into play here. That is our responsibility for this world. When I make food, when I prepare food, eat food, and throw away, I'm very aware of where that food comes from. I'm also very aware of the fact that there are many people who have nothing to eat. So, throwing away food that is not bad is, for me, at least, a disrespect towards the farmer that grew it, that raised it, that harvested it, but also towards the sun and the rain and nature that grew and presented that food for me. I bought it at the supermarket, but I'm very aware where it comes from, the process, and especially if you talk about animal products. An animal has died to feed you. So it's not possible for me to throw away food that is not bad. I put it in the fridge and I eat it later. And I think that is the sensible thing to do. So you have to look at these texts from the perspective of the time that it was written. That is around 1100 years ago. There were no refrigerators at that time. Also interesting, I grew up in a time that fat was devilish. the whole dieting obsession came with fat-free milk and everything that contained fat basically was bad. But after 30, 40 years of that obsession with fat, researchers now come to the conclusion that fat is actually not only healthy, it is essential in the functioning of our nerve system and brain. The yogis knew that already a long time ago. And so he says, food which is devoid of fat should be avoided. It's not that healthy, really. '61. In the beginning, fire, women or men, and journeys should be avoided. For thus, Goraksha says, association with bad company, fire, women or men, and long journeys, bathing early in the morning, fasting, etc., and hard physical activity should be avoided. What is this about? You start out on a whole new venture, the spiritual path. You need all your attention and energy on the beginning stages, on the changes that you are going to go through, without distractions. So anything that requires a lot of energy, like hard work, physical activity, fasting, bathing early in the morning. Fire is not real heat actually here. They added later between square brackets basking near the fire during winter. This is really about Manipura chakra, which Manipura chakra is every action, physically, verbally, and mentally in thought, is initiated in Manipura chakra, because Manipura chakra provides the energy that is responsible for any kind of action, physically, verbally, mentally. So that indirectly means control of your desires. Stay put and stay focused on your study and your practice, and that is how you benefit most. And of course, also you need to avoid men or women. Postpone your romantic interest for a while so that you don't get distracted. Maybe you have experienced this yourself when you were in middle school, secondary school, or maybe you have seen it within your family or schoolmates. When boys and girls start falling in love, their intellectual endeavor suffers from that distraction. So I'm not saying that it's bad. I've been in love, and I've had my puppy love, as it is called in English, and it was a wonderful experience, a crazy experience. But this is about yoga. It's adult education. If you really want to thrive, you should reserve some time to just be on your own, without distractions, so that you can completely focus on the first stages of your development. Later, you do not have to do that anymore. Once you have started to transform, things start settling down, your transformation is consolidating, you just go back to normal life. As the monk that goes to the monastery to do basically what we do, to start out on the path of spiritual life, after years of transformation, the abbot of the monastery will tell the monk to go and live among the normal people. Because staying in the monastery or the temple or wherever it is that you get your spiritual training from, it is of no use if you stay put in that center, in that temple or monastery. The purpose is that you transform and bring the newly developed characteristics that manifest in the crown chakra, love, insight, wisdom, bring that with you to the people that need it most, the normal people, the farmers and the office workers and everybody that needs guidance and a good example. So you eventually just go back to normal life. 62. The following things are suitable to be taken by the yogin: wheat, rice, barley, the grain called sashtika, and purified food: milk, ghee, brown sugar, butter, sugar candy, honey, dry ginger, the vegetable called pataloka, and the 5 pot herbs: green gram, and pure water. Here you have foods that the first couple of items that are mentioned here is all grains. Grains are the product of the energy that is transformed through the leaves of the plant to the seeds, because grain is seeds. Seeds, to understand the nutritional value of seeds, what is the purpose of seed? It's to create new life. If you take a seed from a plant, you put it in the soil, it will create a whole new plant. And that is why they are staple foods, because they provide our body with a complete spectrum of nutrients. All the amino acids are present, and lots of vitamins and minerals are present in the staple foods. So all the beets, roots, grains, seeds and nuts are complete foods. And on the side you have, if you're not a vegetarian, you eat some meat or fish or what have you, and some veggies, some tomatoes, salad, green leaves, what have you, those kind of things. But the main part of the meal better exists out of one of those staple foods. Potatoes are among the beets, carrots and so on, all the product of the energy that is being transformed through the leaves of the plant. Milk, ghee, brown sugar, butter, sugar candy, honey, dry ginger. Well, we live in a time where you're advised not to eat too much of that, because the foods, especially what do you call it? Processed foods contain already more than enough than we need in a day. And it is more likely that we eat too much of it than too little. But again, you have to see this from the perspective of the time in which it was written. These are foods that were very scarce. Sugar, honey, milk, ghee. Normal people couldn't even if it was available, they couldn't even afford to have those foods. So it was written in a time that people would rather have too little of it than too much. And times have, of course, changed enormously. But if you wonder how a yoga book can contain the advice to eat sugar and honey and all these things that I mentioned there, that is because it was scarce at that time and people had too little of it. 63. The yogin should take nourishing and sweet food mixed with ghee and milk, etc. It should nourish the dhatus and be pleasing and suitable. The dhatus are the 7 building blocks that we mentioned with the introduction of the chakras, starting with Muladhara chakra. One of the characters drawn, one of the what do you call it? One of the characters in the Muladhara chakra drawing is an elephant, but an elephant with 7 trunks. Each of those trunks represent one of the dhatus. It starts with, it's mentioned in the description, I think. Plasma. Plasma leads to the creation of blood. Plasma and blood lead to the creation of muscle tissue. Those 3 then lead to the creation of fat tissue. Those 4 then lead to the creation of bone tissue. Next in line is brain and marrow tissue, and nerves and semen, or ovum. Semen or ovum is in the same category. So food should contain all the building blocks, all the elements that we need to sustain life as a whole. These 7 building blocks of which we are constructed. 64. any person who is not lethargic in the pursuit of different forms of yoga attains perfection through practice. Be he or she young, old, or even very old, sickly or weak. This is very encouraging. I once saw an advertisement recruiting people for a certain yoga course. And one of the requirements, I kid you not, was you have to have a beautiful body. And me being a traditional yogi, first I felt disgust and then I just laughed. I just thought how ignorant people can be. And they're selling something under the banner called yoga and they have no idea what they're talking about. This sutta tells us that any person who is at least a bit motivated to practice will have good results from yoga. He calls it siddhi, you will achieve perfection, but that is not the kind of perfection that we usually talk about, that is surrounded by tension and you know, unpleasant feelings. The perfection here is that you're in the best condition that you can be. And even very old, sick, or weak people can benefit from it. That is the most important. If you're already healthy, you might not notice so much effect from yoga practice. But if you're not so healthy, if your health is weak, you might have a huge benefit from your yoga practice. So sometimes I get a phone call or an email and people are interested in this course and then a little bit insecure, they will say something like, well, you know, I'm not so flexible. Will this be fit for me, even though I'm not so flexible? So I said, yes, of course. Because I know that our approach is not about a perfect pose. It's about the whole spectrum of yoga leading to incredible transformation. And the physical part is only a small part of it. So I always try to make people feel comfortable. I try to encourage them to not feel shy to come to a class, expecting to be surrounded by people who are perfect in asanas, because that is not what we do here. 65. One who is intent on practice will obtain siddhi, not one who is idle. Yoga siddhi is not obtained by a mere reading of the scriptures. So, this has quite a deep meaning. It's clear, of course, that yoga doesn't work if you don't practice. But he says, you will not reach any results if you limit yourself only to reading books. Ajita wrote as a comment, didn't Jesus have something against scholars as well? He has a kind of a... I'm Roman Catholic by birth, but I have no bad experiences with that. He apparently had a strict Roman Catholic upbringing and is quite traumatized by it, so during his lectures he refers to that now and then. Makes me smile. But the reality is there are many yoga books that are written by people who have not actually experienced in practice what yoga does. There are many interpretations of this book alone, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And I've tried some of those books by authors with a name that impresses, like Swami, Yogi, blah, blah, blah. And then when they talk about fire, staying away from fire, then the interpretation below the original text is, if you come too close to fire, you get burned. And for me, that is a reason to put that book away and never ever look at it again, or put it in the old paper bin. There are scholars, of course, who studied Sanskrit. We need those people to translate these texts. But how can you translate a text that gives very practical insights, that describes, in symbolical language, very important, describe how that practice in all its facets changes the entirety of the human being? It is because of that many of these texts have been interpreted, taking the text literal. Just 2 weeks ago, a Dutch yoga teacher went to Mexico to some kind of yoga retreat, and she fell into a coma after doing Kriya. We have done Kriya in a way that will never be dangerous to you. But if you start swallowing a piece of bandage, or you suck up water through the anus, as symbolically described, you're going to harm yourself. And that was one of my messages to you. You have to understand what is behind the symbolism. And honestly, there are really not that many who do know the meaning behind the symbolism. Not even supposedly scholars and what have you. Because they have no practical experience doing yoga while actually trying to describe it. That is what this Sutra 65 means. 66, also very interesting. Siddhi is not achieved by wearing the dress of a yogi or by talking about it. Practice alone is the cause of success. This is the truth without a doubt. Now, I mentioned somewhere at the beginning a documentary that is called Kumar. Kumar is, I think it's available on YouTube, and it basically reflects what this sutra means. Just wearing the dress of a yogi doesn't make you a yogi. Practice alone. In fact, I dare say, a real yogi, when walking in Myeongdong, nobody would recognize. You're just one among many people. But what does a fake yogi do? They put on a turban on their head, they dress themselves up in a traditional cloth, and they walk around and draw everybody's attention. That is what Kumar is about. And the sad thing is that many people fall for it. The story of Kumar is about an Indian guy who was born in the United States. He's an IT specialist in Silicon Valley. Maybe he's been in India only to visit family, but he has no traditional background. He grew up, he was born and raised in the United States. But he's very smart, very intelligent. Looking at what's going on in yoga land, since it became so popular around the world, he just kind of jokingly thought about doing an experiment. Because he looks Indian, he started to dress up like an Indian, he adopted a funny Indian accent, Indian English, and he started traveling around and see how people would react. And he visits other communities that are led by people who do exactly that. They fool people into thinking that they are holy people, And they make people pay for those services and sometimes even become damaged as a result of what they are doing. And that is what he exposes in that documentary. It's a very interesting documentary that basically tells you when pursuing the spiritual path, to keep your eyes open, to not be fooled into thinking that you're sitting in front of a special teacher just because they pretend to be. Because there is a lot of pretending. And I really recommend that you watch the document. It's also funny. It's also enjoyable, but it gives great insight. Not only what is happening in yoga world, it happens everywhere. This is just the world that we live in, the world of deception. And many people make lots of money out of that. 67, the last asana, the last sutra. The asanas, the different kumbhakas and the excellent karanas are all in the course of Hatha Yoga to be practiced till the fruit of Raja Yoga is obtained. I have nothing to add to that. I think it is clear. Yoga is an amazing system. It leads to remarkable improvement on a personal level, in terms of health, happiness, and also in terms of taking control of our destiny. We will come to that starting from next week when we have the final big subject of this course, the science of misery. Questions? Yes?
When you talked about the lion pose.
Yeah. You want to try?
I was even think of the lion breath, and I want to know if that's something that's part of the yoga that you teach the lion breath.
Lion breath?
Yes, you're supposed to breathe out with a sigh and stick your tongue out. And when you said you don't actually stick your tongue out, I was wondering if that means that breath is from.
It's the first time that I hear of it, but it sounds like what people do with the lion pose. But actually the text did not tell us to stick out the tongue. It does tell us to open the mouth. The sticking out of the tongue has been added later, I assume. It's not part of the original text. Breathing exercise are always good. I do some too for my sensitive lungs, but it has nothing to do with yoga.
It was introduced when they were saying when we were doing the downward dog, but not with another pose. So maybe it's just something you can do whenever, with the idea of exhaling with all your might, and then the sticking out just probably helps really open the mouth.
Yeah. No, when you do it in front of the mirror. Yeah. It will help you deal with ego. Just kidding. No, just have fun. I mean, and do it with kids. Kids love it. It's a little bit exhausting teaching yoga to kids. I've done it for a year, but so much fun. All right, let's have a short break.